Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted that number 1 would be Lilo and Stitch, number 2 would be Karate Kid Legends, number 3 would be Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning, number 4 would be Bring Her Back, and number 5 would be Final Destination Bloodlines. And Jesus Christ, some of you actually had a much easier go of predicting the top 5 this weekend, and here I was just like completely off the mark entirely. Not entirely. We did get one prediction right, which is unfortunately the first one, so we're just going to get the victory out of the way in that instance. Number 1 was once again Lilo and Stitch. I was wondering, it's going to be number 1, but how is this going to hold over? I was wondering the same about Mission Impossible, and looking at like the percentage drops on the numbers.com, the one they had listed, they both kind of dropped about the same of 57%, somewhere around there. And it's like, that's interesting, but I mean, they're still making a lot of money. And in the case of Lilo and Stitch, I think already they're seeing, a good sign as far as like their profitability, because their budget was much smaller than what Mission Impossible's was. We've talked about how Mission Impossible probably won't be profitable in theaters, but after the fact, and just in the long run and all that. Either way, though, Lilo and Stitch is really reaping the benefits. Either way, the drop percentage doesn't necessarily matter since they're both still on top. In this instance, Lilo and Stitch made $63 million for this weekend. That now adds to a domestic total of $280 million. For Disney remakes, it has outgrossed Cinderella by $79 million and Maleficent by $39 million. It needs $54 million until it gets to the Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland film, which is technically not a remake because they acknowledge the events of the first movie, but potato, who gives a fuck? This also means that, this is really ranking up there as far as like these Disney live-action remakes. It's probably going to blow right through Alice in Wonderland. It's only a matter of time till it gets real close to like your Aladdins or Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King. So who would have thunk that Lilo and Stitch would be the one to really do? Honestly, I'm a little surprised. And then when you jump to worldwide, it is sitting at $610 million, obviously a big bump from last week. And I read somewhere that they're estimating this is, going to hit $1 billion, unlike that, pussy-ass Minecraft that didn't get there. It got very close, but, no cigar, But this one is really, kind of aiming its way up there. Domestically, it may have dropped 57% this weekend, but I mean, the worldwide totals are still really huge. It's also outgrossed the Tim Burton Dumbo by $277 million and Cinderella by $68 million. So right now it's behind Maleficent by $148. Both lists, it's really charting its way up. It's not like, well, worldwide it's doing really well, but domestically it's falling short. It's like, no, they're both they're both adding up here. And the fact that they're at $600 million worldwide off of this budget of $100 million, yeah, they're really reaping the rewards right now. Good on them, even though this movie fucking sucks. If you've seen my review, you know my thoughts on that. Let's move on to number 2, though, because I don't have anything interesting to say about Lilo and Stitch. Let's move on to number 2, which is Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning. Like I was saying, it dropped about 57%, similar to Lilo and Stitch. It made $27 million, adding to a domestic total of $122 million. So it's still not outgrossed MI3 yet domestically. It needs $11 million to do so. Worldwide, I looked at the numbers.com and it was like mid 200s, like 250, somewhere around there. But then I go to, Box Office Mojo and I see it's, tweeted out by like Discussing Film or, someone like that on Twitter. Apparently they listed at $353 million. So either the numbers is wrong or everyone else with $353 million. So they're at the very least, like in 2 weeks, they are about to, cross over their initial production budget of either 300 or 400 million dollars. So, at the very least, that is not a bad thing at all, no huge like Barbenheimer thing to like stop them the week after. I guess this was technically kind of part of not this year's Barbenheimer, but another, like, it was a huge Memorial Day weekend last weekend, so it was kind of part of that big wave, and people are liking this movie, so people are talking about, like, you gotta see it, and like I was kind of saying, there's not really a lot of crossover when it comes to, like, Lilo and Stitch's target audience and Mission Impossible, so a lot of variety there. It is not outgrossed an MI film yet worldwide, though. It needs $46 million until MI3, so MI3 is the one to beat right now, but at the very least, they're still making some waves here. You can say at the very least that, Mission Impossible, even if it, can't beat Lilo and Stitch, even though Tom Cruise did beat Lilo and Stitch when it initially came out in Minority Report, but that's a, different thing, doesn't matter. You can at least say that, Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible is a winner because the newcomer Karate Kid Legends did not make more money than it. It came in at number 3. And I don't know if I should be surprised by this or not. I know Cobra Kai really took off and there's a lot of fans of that show. It's whatever. Like, I don't have any strong opinions on it other than it's fine. You know what I mean? It starts off pretty good and then it kind of descends into just, okay. And I think I was like expecting like a bit of a larger turnout for this new Karate Kid movie, but I guess it's not an exact translation of where I thought the fandom was. Made 21 million. So yeah, just 6 million shy of that Tom Cruise number 2 spot. Get him. This is, of course, on a budget of 45 million, though, and apparently it's been out in some other places worldwide already, so it's already garnered up 47 million in total worldwide. So they need about 43 million more until they double that initial production budget. Domestically, this is, I don't know, it's a fine enough opening. I don't know if this is going to have the legs to carry on. I know it got a solid cinema score, like some audience members seem to be enjoying this. I thought this fucking sucked. So I don't know if word of mouth is really going to be as strong for this one. Especially since, if you want to take your kids to a family film, Lilo and Stitch is still in theaters and, you don't necessarily have to deal with the baggage of, it being a sequel. It's a remake, so, if a kid is really bothered by like, oh, it's a remake of a thing I didn't watch versus Karate Kid, it's a part of an ongoing franchise and also part of a TV show. How much commitment do I really need? Do I even need it at all? Can I just see it? I don't know. Let's not worry about it. Maybe it's something like that. Yeah, I just don't see it really have it because, like, I feel like the word of mouth is just kind of like, no, it was fine, you know what I mean? And at the very least, Lilo and Stitch is tied to that, like, kids will just fucking just go out screaming about it because they love Stitch, and the parents are like, well, if my kids liked it, you know what I mean? I don't know if Karate Kid has that same kind of power. Either way, though, it is the second highest opening weekend ever for a Karate Kid film, unadjusted for inflation. 21 million over next Karate Kid. I couldn't find an actual, like, opening weekend number for that one, so sorry. Sorry, Hilary Swank. It's 16 million over the original film's opening, 11 million over part 3, and 9 million over part 2. It is below the 2010, not remake, but a different thing, the 2010 one by 34 million. So second highest opening, good on them. They couldn't best that other one though, and it's kind of an underwhelming, like, finishing third kind of opening. So I don't know if they consider that a victory. It did already outgross next Karate Kid by 13 million domestically and needs 17 million until part 3. Worldwide, like we mentioned, it's 47 million, so they've already outgrossed next Karate Kid by 32 million, and part 3 by 9 million. It needs 43 million until it gets to the original film. Like I'm saying, I don't know what kind of, like, legs this thing is going to have, or it's going to continue to carry over, but, it's here. It's going to collect some money and then dip entirely. I don't know. Who cares? Number 4 was Final Destination Bloodline. Still holding over, pretty solidly, all things considered, with a new horror film, which we'll talk about in a second. Made 10.8 million, adding to a domestic total of 111 million. I decided to pull up some horror movie stats. It did outgross The Grudge 2004 by 1 million, and it's 6 million away from The Nun, and that means it is number 22 on the horror movies domestic runs of all time list. And yes, before you ask, I did add The Sixth Sense. So on the numbers.com, it would say 21, but because, what I've been saying about about Sinners, like, oh, they have these lists on there, but it seems like they're missing some things. I only really noticed The Sixth Sense. And I got a comment from someone that was saying, like, The Sixth Sense isn't a horror movie. And I respectfully disagree. So if you don't mind my stupid antics, I'm going to keep, like, inserting The Sixth Sense. And if I could think of, like, another horror movie they could be potentially missing, I'd add it too, but I'm not going to. It's just that one. Because that one made a lot of money, and it's scary. I know it's like, I know it's a drama, I know it's not your typical horror film, but it is scary. You know what I mean? Like, it is a frightening, it has, horrific images, you can call that a horror film, even if it's a little more, like, dramatic and sadder than a slasher. Anyways, so number 22, and then worldwide it is sitting at 229 million. So for the franchise, domestically last weekend it became the highest grossing one. Worldwide this weekend it's doing the same thing. It outgrossed the Final Destination by 42 million, and then right now for all-time horror movie lists worldwide. It outgrossed Interview with a Vampire by $6 million, and it's $2 million away from Annabelle Comes Home, so it's number 31. So, I figured I might as well pull up the horror movie stats on this because it's been making money in a kind of surprising way ever since it opened. So I figured, like, yeah, since we're done, like, comparing notes on the franchise, let's look where it's stacking up with some of these other ones. I'd be interested to see what else it advances past, in the coming weeks while it's still here. Number 5 is Bring Her Back. Not really having the same kind of attention, but also this is a really nasty kind of like, I don't know if divisive is the right word. I know it's not going to be for everyone just based off of certain things that are in the movie, some that might really turn some people away from it, morally, I guess. And I can understand that, it's not going to be for every average audience, but even like if you just want to see a fun horror movie, this isn't a fun one. It made $7.8 million. This is on a budget of $20 million. There's no worldwide totals to bump it up yet. As far as the Filippo's previous film, Talk to Me, the opening weekend was $3 million below that one, and it needs $41 million overall to outgross that domestic run. This is why I predicted it to be a little bit higher than Final Destination, because I was like, not only is it a new one and people are talking it up, but it's the Filippo's and they're promoting that it's the directors of Talk to Me, and Talk to Me really broke out in 2023 in this kind of audience. So I thought all these things would align for like an opening weekend that was like maybe not like significantly huge, not like the difference of Get Out's opening weekend versus Us's, where it was like much bigger because Get Out really caught on. I'm not saying something drastic like that, just a little bit more of a bump. And I don't know, something about it maybe just wasn't catching on this time around, or it's just caught up in the wave of people were riding high on Sinners, but then Final Destination came along, and that's part of an ongoing franchise, and people are really talking that up. Maybe this one's just getting a little lost in the shuffle, or maybe it'll end up fine. Maybe this will eventually catch on, or maybe it'll catch on just after it's in theaters. Who knows? The budget is still relatively low. And we've talked about how A24, if they're not profitable in theaters, they got their merch on their website that costs a lot, and who knows what else they got going on. Anyways, number 6 is Sinners. Speaking of that, making 5.2, adding to a domestic total of 267 million. Worldwide, it is sitting at 350. And before we go into any of the other stats, just wanted to point out how it did overtake Thunderbolts. For the longest time, it was like Thunderbolts was up before it. And it would get kind of close, but then Final Destination would come and be like, well, any momentum that Sinners could have had to overtake Thunderbolts kind of gone a little bit, but now here we are, overtaking Thunderbolts by just a little bit. For Ryan Coogler, it is 186 million away from Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Worldwide, 509 million from that. As far as the horror list, domestically, it is still in the top 4. It is 6 million away from Jaws now, so inching closer to that. And then worldwide, it did outgross both Hannibal and Alien Romulus by just a couple 100,000, so squeaking by those, and it needs 12 million now until it gets to The Nun. Right there, it is number 7. Like, yeah, this one just really blazing some trails, That's just really cool. And I've kind of run out of ways to say that it's really cool that it's doing that. So let's move on to number 7, which is Thunderbolts. Like we talked about, they flip-flopped. But this one, hitting a bit of a milestone. It made 4.8 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of 181 for the MCU list domestically. It outgrossed a couple movies. It outgrossed The First Avenger by 5 million, Ant-Man by 1, and it just squeaked by the first Thor by just a couple 100,000. Right now it is behind Black Widow by 2 million. So that's pretty good. And then worldwide, we finally got to a doubling point. It's now sitting at 369 million, so it's doubled its 180 initial production budget. Good on you. Like I was saying before, and also it needs 1 million until it gets to The First Avenger. At this point, they've already outgrossed it. Like I was saying last weekend, I was really hoping, since this is considerably a better film, that it would last a little bit more, that it would hold over well enough to outgross, Brave New World. Right now, it's if my calculations are correct, right now it's looking like it's about to dip out of the top 10 and kind of fall short of Brave New World. And after rewatching that film again on Disney Plus, that's just an injustice, man. That movie really is ass, and then Thunderbolts is like a genuinely well-made thing. But no, more people wanted to see the bad thing just by a slim margin. I don't know, like, word of mouth has been strong. I think it'll catch on at some point, home media, whatever. Just like Dungeons and Dragons, which also no one saw in theaters. Not nobody, just not enough people. What else came out at that time? Mario, John Wick. Yeah, like, John Wick was pretty excellent. I can't fault anyone for seeing that one, but that many people seeing Mario? a fine movie. I don't know, man. That doesn't rub me the right way. Number 8 is Friendship, making 2.5, adding to a domestic total of 12.3. Still don't know what the budget of this thing is, and there's no worldwide total, but I'm thinking at this point they're in the clear. You know, we've already talked about how they're probably made this on the lower, like, cheaper side, so they're probably all good. I'm just glad more people are seeing this in theaters. Kind of unrelated, because I don't really have anything else to add. I watched all of Detroiters with Tim Robinson and Sam Richardson, and it was good. Funny, in fact. It's a bummer it got canceled after 2 seasons, but it's all on Netflix, and if you're looking for some laughs, check it out. If you're a fan of I Think You Should Leave but haven't seen the Detroiters, you should check that out as well. Anyways, I just wanted to put that in there because, like I've been saying, sometimes I just run out of things to say. I don't want to sound like a broken record, so let's move on to number 9, which is The Last Rodeo, making 2.1 million, adding to a domestic total of 10.7. It has outgrossed Sight by 3 million for Angel Studios, so it's behind After Death and Sound of Hope by 1 million, so it might as well have outgrossed those at that point. Good on you, Angel Studios. Also, I don't care. It's still 6 million away from doubling its initial production budget, so whoop-de-doo, who cares? Last one, number 10, J-Hope Tour Hope on the Stage in Japan live viewing. That's the whole title, apparently. It made $939,000 on a budget of I don't know, but worldwide that bumps it up to 4.1 million. Interesting how, this one had more of a drive for people to go to the theaters other than hurry up tomorrow. I don't know. I had to find a reason to put that back in there somehow, and that was it. Am I proud of it? Do you care? I don't know. I don't care. Anyways, now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. Number 1, I'm going to go with Ballerina from the world of John Wick. Number 2, I think will be Lilo and Stitch. Number 3, Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. Number 4, Karate Kid Legends. And number 5, Final Destination, Bloodlines. Do I think The Phoenician Scheme or Dangerous Animals? What is that title? I'm not looking it up. Do I think either of those will have enough of a drive to get people in the theater? No, I don't think so. I think they're gonna play in like some small auditoriums in some theaters, some limited screening times, and they'll make the bottom 5 of the top 10 if they get in there at all. That's what I think. I would love to be proven wrong, especially in the case of the Wes Anderson film, which I'm looking forward to, but we'll see. We know how it goes, though. Anyways, what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.